The Menu is from director Mark Mylod, a director for Succession, Game of Thrones, and Shameless. It was written by Seth Rice and Will Tracy, two people who appear to have a history of working for The Onion. Now, Rice works for Late Night with Seth Meyers, and Tracy writes for Last Week Tonight and Succession. It features an ensemble cast, mostly as rich food snobs brought together on an island for a special expensive dinner from a celebrity chef played by Ralph Fiennes. The problem is that Fiennes hates everyone here for taking the joy out of his cooking job, and has some sinister things in mind for them. It's a sort of psychological horror comedy, but really just a dark satire. Almost everybody is an unlikable caricature of high society, from the rich to just the snobby. And it's a little like another recent horror comedy satire from Searchlight Pictures, Ready or Not, except this one is a little less over the top, but probably not by much. And it's funny, as you may have expected from the fact that Succession was mentioned twice when I credited the people behind it. This movie does have that same tone where everybody's a rich jerk and it's funny. But while Succession characters have good one-liners that allow you to laugh with them, the jokes are almost entirely at the expense of the rich jerks here. Although there is still a feeling of suspense and dread of what Ralph Fiennes is going to do next. And the ensemble cast gives it their all. The day I wrote the script for this, I found out that it has 2 acting nominations at the Golden Globes, for Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy as probably the only sympathetic character in the entire movie. Not that we should care about the Golden Globes anymore. The movie could also serve as a meta-commentary on the making of art. Or the making of anything, really, through the lens of making meals. It's a tale of how people don't appreciate the art of it anymore and how that drains the artist/chef/whatever, and about how that artist takes his revenge. I'm sorry about what I said about your version of Pinocchio, Mr. Zemeckis. Please don't hunt me down. But anyway, The Menu is a film about true horror, being held captive by a madman, and worst of all, being surrounded by rich pricks. But in all seriousness, this is a fun, dark comedy. It has an eat-the-rich attitude and doesn't take itself too seriously. A non-pretentious film about pretentiousness. And a fun time.
Irene Miracle, Paul Lamont, Barbara Crampton, and William Hickey as the Puppet Master.
So now the awkward part. I mentioned Disney Plus's new version of Pinocchio and how people don't always appreciate an artist's vision. Now it's time to talk about Netflix's version. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It's so much his movie he put his name in the title. Meanwhile, if I was Robert Zemeckis, I'd want as little people to know it was my movie as possible. Yeah, now I'm done with the whole don't hurt me act from a few minutes ago. Besides, there are really only a handful of scenes in that one where it feels like it wasn't just a paycheck. He's like Ralph Fiennes making processed foods while thinking about how much he hates his life. Anyway, obviously this movie was directed by not just Guillermo del Toro, but he did it with Mark Gustafsson. Del Toro also wrote it along with Patrick McHale, creator of Over the Garden Wall, and Matthew Robbins, a writer for Crimson Peak and Batteries Not Included. This uses old-fashioned stop-motion animation to tell the story of Pinocchio. And this one has something that no other adaptation has ever had: fascism. It takes place in Italy, during the rise of Mussolini, and it has a surprising amount of fascist imagery. You probably never thought you were going to see Pinocchio perform fascist propaganda on stage, did you? Hey, what if instead of going to Pleasure Island, he was fucking drafted? It's that kind of movie, for anybody who thought the original Pinocchio needed more Pan's Labyrinth. And for a PG-rated animated film, this is fucking dark. It opens with the death of Geppetto's young son, and the rest of it is about violence, dictatorships, and a surprising amount of talk about mortality, including trips to the afterlife. This doesn't even feel like a family film, even less so than Netflix's actually PG-13 stop-motion film Wendell and Wild. Also a great movie, by the way. Because this might not even be a family film. Maybe it's just a grown-up film that's clean enough to be watched by, I guess, children who don't mind hearing about this kind of stuff. I guess maybe that might mean some children would like the Zemeckis version better, but then again, this one has the advantage of actually being animated. Seriously, why are live-action Disney remakes a thing? Kids like animated stuff. I know I preferred that when I was really young. But anyway, you can tell this was more than just a paycheck for the people who worked on it. It's Del Toro's passion project, and he's put his style into it. Things that any other adaptation wouldn't even think of touching. The animation is great, the visuals are cool, and the characters, most notably Pinocchio himself, are all likable. It has a little bit of Del Toro's love for monsters, particularly in scenes where Pinocchio goes to the afterlife. The story is well told and feels intense and emotional. There are a few songs in here. They're good, they aren't as memorable as some of the songs in the original, but that's obviously a high bar, those are classics. But really, it's the Pan's Labyrinth feel that makes all the difference. In conclusion, this is by far the best Pinocchio this year. Guillermo del Toro truly does something new with the material, and it works out very well. It's a great experience that's both joyful and melancholy, and lacks the cynicism of a certain other adaptation. Go see it. Oh, will you look at that? Robert Zemeckis invited me to have dinner on a private island. For only $12.50 a head. What are we eating, a Rolex? Screw that. Anyway, support my channel. Link to my Patreon in the description.